Yes, I'm recording right now.
Yay! I mean, don't record that, but yay!
Okay.
Hey, Tammy.
I'm ready.
Welcome.
Welcome.
We're trying to figure out how to get things recorded, and then we'll introduce ourselves in a less dorky way in a minute, but you got the yay when you first got on, so good.
I did. I like that.
Welcome.
A great way to be welcomed into a meeting. I'll come to these meetings more often, man.
Exactly. Just round of applause when people enter. Way to go, Tammy. So glad you're here.
Love it.
I think Chad's going to join us, so we'll wait for just a minute or two and then get started.
Tammy, it looks like you're sheltering in a lovely place.
I am sheltering at home right now, but you know what? This is really where I would like to be right now.
That would be nice.
I joke with everybody because with the Hotline's phone system, we just went to a whole new remote phone system last August, and I could be anywhere in the world and answering the calls as long as I had internet, and nobody would ever know. So I'm like, oh, I could go sit on a beach somewhere.
That'd be so fun. All right.
Nice. I'm still waiting for one of these kinds of backgrounds that addresses bedhead in them.
Do the backgrounds because my hair always gets like caught in the background.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll be like super flat. I mean, like only my face will show. Anyway, we'll keep trying.
So maybe you need a green screen cast.
I need your green screen. I asked Kelsey to find one for me. This is ridiculous. I need it.
Oh, it's something like this.
Wait, we can't see it because it's green.
Just a second. Oh.
It's so cool. He has this green
Like
screen.
this?
It sits on his chair, and then it's like this amazing, always perfect right behind him.
Oh, that's cool.
It is so cool. Yeah. And I need to make myself that logo too. Yeah, I think I'm going to invest in that. I'm rewriting that note. I'm going to follow up with Kelsey again. She probably thought I was being silly when I'm like, I really want a green screen chair. Like, add a sec. Hey, Chad, welcome.
Chad, we were just talking about all of our Christmas lists we're going to give to you. We all want green screens for Christmas this year. So if you could just deliver on that.
No problem. Chad. Adasak actually has this green screen that fits behind his chair, so it always looks like professional and perfect. And I was showing when I do mine, it like will cut off my hair and like always look weird. So he's going to show us how to do this professionally with green screen chairs at some point.
Well, I'm actually stopped using that because it's kind of a trouble putting it on and off. And my wife sits next to me, and then she's affected by that as well as kind of cross traffic. She's like, you green screen.
Hey, you know, Chad, with all of this COVID Zooming and stuff, maybe this is something that Extension could add into their training programs, is how to appropriately use the green screen.
Well, I agree with you 100%. There's a lot to be learned about doing this virtually and mixing it up and having a little bit of a flair because, I mean, honestly, there are days when I'm sitting in front of a laptop and a camera for 8-9 hours. It's I mean, it's woo. Yeah, you need to brighten it up a little bit.
Absolutely.
I hear ya. Well, I'm so glad everyone's here.
Yeah.
Sean, I think you have the magic, right?
I will share a screen here and play this.
So no Mentimeter today, FYI, Chad. In case you're worried we're going to make you fill out 18 surveys, not today.
I love surveys.
Well, good. We're doing focus groups today. I mean, with the two of you. We're super excited. So we are here to talk about the Hotline project as part of the Data Science for the Public Good program this summer, and we are very excited and happy that you guys could join us. So we wanted to start with just actually introductions. If you would introduce yourselves to our team, that would be wonderful.
So I'm assuming this is the same team I introduced myself to yesterday.
Nope,
Nope,
these are all
different?
new people.
Oh,
So you can
okay.
use all the same jokes.
That will not be new. My sons are used to me retelling the same old silly jokes daily. But I'm Chad Higgins. I'm the Senior Director for Extension and Outreach. And we have, and Tammy, I'll let you introduce yourself and tell them what you do, but I'm really glad you're here. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Awesome. Thanks, Chad. I'm Tammy Jacobs. I'm the coordinator for the hotlines with Extension and Outreach. I actually coordinate 2 different locations. In the Ames location, I'm the coordinator for the answer line. I call that hotline our home guru. So you got a stain you need to get out there, the experts to call. You need to know how to do food preservation, food safety, what kind of a substitution to make in a recipe to make it gluten-free. They are the ones to contact. And then down in Urbandale is the other hotline center, and the lines that we handle there, our main one through the extension is Iowa Concern Hotline. That's a hotline that's been around since sorry about my farming noise background. Tractors are going by today. They're in the field spraying, making lots of noise. But the Iowa Concern started back in 1985 with the farm crisis. We expanded from a rural focus hotline in 1993 and changed our name from Rural Concern to Iowa Concern so that residents throughout the state would feel comfortable in reaching out to us. That was the time of the big flooding that hit us statewide that year. And we coordinate and collaborate with a lot of different grant operations and opportunity. Right now, our biggest thing that we're doing on the Iowa Concern is that we are part of the $1 million FEMA grant for the crisis counseling program for individuals who have been impacted by COVID-19, which I think pretty much entails every person in the world right now. I don't think that there's a person that's not been impacted in some way. So we are providing the hotline for that as well as virtual outreach counselors. We are currently in a 45-day time period for the initial service plan, and then looking to extend beyond that to 180 days with the regular service plan following that. We just concluded with a FEMA grant the end of March that was the crisis counseling program for the flooding that occurred, primarily working with 7 counties in western Iowa. So we've done this quite a few times with DHS and with FEMA. So we're really excited about this opportunity because of the fact that it's an all virtual program. So it's very unique and different. So we're excited to see where that goes. To help kind of offset expenses, we've added a couple other grants and programs over the year. In 1993, we also added through grants from the public health, Healthy Families and Teen Line, and those are continuing to go until throughout today. Currently, it's a year-to-year contract. Our contract is up September 30th, but that's probably going to be continuing on from talking to the funders yesterday. And then the last hotline that we answer is 211. This is a collaboration between 5 different entities in Iowa to ensure that all 99 counties, are covered. We primarily maintain our resource database and answer calls for 25 counties, starting in northwestern Iowa, going diagonally and coming through like Boone and Story County. The big thing with 211 is, a lot of you may know, is we were contracted by the Department of Public Health to be the COVID-19 hotline. So our calls went up drastically with the start of this project. And I can give some statistics if you guys are interested down the road. But it's been a huge learning curve. We more than doubled my staff that are able to take calls. And so it's been a very interesting spring, and I think we're going to continue with interesting times ahead of us.
Tammy, that's awesome. And I can say just right off the bat, everything you said is super helpful. If you have any documentation that you share, even old grants, anything like this that outlines what you did that we could keep in our documentation folder.
Yeah,
And,
so I actually have like a one-pager that talks about all the hotlines. And then, so it describes all the hotlines, and then on the back of it, it gives just a generic summary of each hotline, how many calls were taken, the top 3 call topics for each hotline for the year 2019. And I believe I did this one at the end of May. So it's going to have the statistics from January to May for this year regarding the number of calls we've taken and the top 3 call topics and that. So I can get that to you for sure.
That would be awesome.
Amazing. Yeah. And we can tell, like, right off the bat, you are the right person to talk to. So I am thrilled for this conversation to keep going because we have a lot of questions, and I feel like you're a person with a lot of answers. So this is phenomenal. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, when we were trying to say the more the merrier to bring in, is, well, Tammy's going to be able to answer everything that you have to ask.
And if I can't answer it, I'm really good at making up an answer, and you'll never know if it's true or not.
All right.
Just kidding.
So we'll get to it in a minute, but we have a lot of questions that the students came up with, that the team leads came up with to get into this, and I think it really will be perfect to have you here. Sean, do you want to go to the next one? We'll introduce you to the team. I'm here presenting as the PI of the Data Science for the Public Good program at Iowa State, and the co-PI of the national program. But the team that's actually working with you is a really phenomenal combination of people who have been part of our program. And this includes Adisak Sakul. He's the main faculty lead on this project. And he comes from the Department of Computer Science. He teaches all of the required data science courses right now for our university. He is a Google Cloud faculty expert. He is an expert in Python, TensorFlow, cloud computing, machine learning, deep learning. He is the guy we go to with really tricky data science questions at the university, and we feel really lucky that we got him to lead this team. The other faculty member is Sean Dorius, who is a computational social scientist with a focus on community well-being. He is very well known for his work on inequalities between places and place branding, and has done a lot of work to think about methods to capture the real inequalities between groups and people. And so when we're talking about things like the impact on COVID, he's the person we want in this conversation. And then we have 4 phenomenal students. We have our fellow Deepak, who is coming to us with, well, I have all their degrees on the side. We'll get in just a minute. Jinyi, Kent, and Andy, they're all on the phone. And between this group, this is not very many people, but between them all, here are the degrees that we have. Data science, statistics, computer science, information systems, finance, supply chain management, mathematics, and sociology. So really deep and diverse training in this group. But the thing that pulls everyone together is this desire to use these data science tools to improve the public good. So one thing that is really common across many of our data science related fields at the university is there's a lot of internships and opportunities for people to apply their learning in a corporate setting. And what this program does that's quite unique is it applies this in a real world setting that supports a public good. So does it support a community? Does it support a local government? Does it support a state government? Perfect, Sean. And this is coming, to go to the next one, yeah. And this is coming from a larger set of grants, which Chad is a co-PI on the first one on the left, this USDA grant. But we have $1 million from the USDA and $1 million from Gates, and this is spread over 5 universities in 3 states. And this is, we're working together on slightly different things, but really it's to bring data science into CES and spread it into communities. And so we are carefully but closely partnering with CES across all of these states. And the vision here is that we will kind of evolve our community leaders and also bring data science in as a new pillar of strength within cooperative extension system to bring more of a data-driven approach. So you already live and breathe this, but this is something we're trying to kind of spread out with all the professionals. And so we're also providing training and resources and developing a whole training portal for extension professionals and agents in the US. One of the examples will, oh, this one is, sorry.
Let me just pop, I slid this one in here. A quick why we're here. What's this all about? And then Cass is going to give you a really great example from some prior work. It's really similar to what you're doing, where you can kind of see some connections. But we're aware that you run these many hotlines, and that these hotlines can be kind of episodic. When life is good, the phone lines are quiet, and when life is turbulent, the hotlines are ringing off the hook, like during the farm crisis and this pandemic right now. So we're asking this question about what things can we do to help the hotline programs to be able to scale up during these demand. We're, as Cass just mentioned, we've got this team of scientists who've committed to spend the next 2 months working on this, doing some design and some analytic things. And so why we're here today is to ask if you can tell us a little about your system, and then we can maybe help find some ways to add some value and develop a system that can help you to track and record the reach and the impact of your hotline programs. So that's kind of what this is about.
Awesome.
And as you're thinking about this, we want to give you, I'm going to give you an example that's been done by a Data Science for the Public Good program before that is a little bit related. And then the team has put together lots of great ideas for what this might look like. But think about what would be really beneficial for you and your teams, what would be good for extension in Iowa, what might help garner future funds as you're going after grants or making new partnerships. So some of the things that we're gonna give you like lots of ideas and then ask for a lot of feedback. But the goal here is just to make a partnership where we help you solve your pressing problems. So that's really what we're here about, just to brainstorm big and then to target what those problems might be, so we can create some data science tools and outputs that really help you.
Perfect.
So let me give you the example of Giles County. And Chad, I don't know if you've seen this one, but it's super cool. So I'm excited to share this. So the background on Giles is it's a small population. The whole county is less than 17,000 people. So this feels like home for us. The unemployment rate was low. This was pre-COVID, but these numbers were taken. The annual budget's right over 50 million, and it's a largely white community. So what happened a few years back is the county officials were going through their budget, and they realized that over 50%, actually 61% of the county's operating budget was to reactive services. So they called the Extension Office and the University of Virginia and Virginia Tech and they created this Data Science for the Public Good program to go and help them answer this question. Where's all the money going, and what can we do to kind of stop this and figure out how to respend our money in other ways that they think might be more productive and preventative rather than reactive. So they went in, they had this discussion, what services are being utilized. So you can see the list here. It's like the courts, community service day report, 911 calls, Department of Social Services, child protection. These are the data that they were able to pull together on the county. Child removals, foster care placements, service classes, all these things. So they took all this data that were part of these reactive services for the county, and they pulled them together. And this really was a close working group of local governments from within the county, cooperative extension professionals, and community stakeholders that met with the data scientists at the university. And they were able to take all of that data and get the geolocation of where the phone calls were coming. And what you see in this top left side is actually a map of all the reactive service requests. So everywhere they're placed is where they were located geographically, and then the height of the bars is the number of calls. And if we had the cool legend showing, you'd see that the color is actually the type of calls that were coming in. And the big finding here was about 1% of locations in their county were utilizing 25% of the services. 5% utilized 55% of the services, and only 10% of the locations utilized 71% of the services. So this was really shocking. I mean, this was unknown to the leadership that brought this problem to the research team. And one thing I didn't mention is on this left side, you see the wheel. This is like the wheel of work that we do. So we first start by meeting with you and discovering the data. What do you have? What can we do? And then we integrate it and we make something out of it. And then we're going to come back and give it to you and think about how to act on it. So this is the process we're talking about right now that they But this was like a really astonishing feature that came back to the counties. And so when they met back with the leaders and said, this is what we found, and it kind of in this data science wheel that you see, this really was in the act part. How now we have data, how do we turn this into actionable insight? And they said, well, now what we see is there's this map of clusters, and instead of taking this as a negative, let's think that that's a place for positive change. That's a place that we can input, we can leverage our resources in more effective ways to really target these areas. And then the next slide in just a sec, I'm going to show you what the output was. But it was so successful that the cooperative extension system is now working with multiple other counties in Virginia to redo this process because they found that it was really incredibly effective. And the county loved it, and it worked really well for extension. So as an output of this, the county put together a series of projects. So they went in and they said, all right, all the reactive services are coming from here. One that's not showing up right here, but I can tell you it was my favorite one, is the county went in, and the place that had the very highest number of calls of all the places was a trailer park. And so they went in and put a park in right next door to that trailer park. And those rates went down by about 50%. So they just said, like, what resources, instead of like increasing like policing and different things, what are like positive resources we can put in? So they had DHS, target more, send out invitations for people to join their home visiting program. They had lots and lots of things. They worked with the prison for recidivism. They found that these were in areas that had high prison, people who had just been let out of prison, things like this. So overall, the county took on this multifaceted, they targeted their resources, they targeted their education opportunities and their programming that they already had in place to the areas where the reactive services were used most. And this was some of the output. They had this 31% reduction in recidivism. There was an increase in 15,000 community service hours. There was a great reduction in the the number of families in TANF on the county. The number of students who did summer work programs increased. And we had 81 new college students enrolled. They really took this pipeline idea and said, let's help people coming back from prison reintegrate better. Let's help kids who might not have a lot of opportunities get into college, and they really target it. One of the things I love about this story that's not on the slide is what actually happened is there was such a reduction in their budget for reactive service calls. It went down again by about 50%, that the state mandated that they get an outside auditor to come and redo their books because they thought they just must be wrong. It was such like a huge impact on what happened. So this is one way that they took this information about the services that were coming in, and then they were able to utilize that, think about that, and target funding and educational opportunities in those areas to help answer some things. So that's one way that we might think about getting data insights from the things we'll talk about next.
Awesome. Thanks, Cass. I'll pause there and say, Chad and Tammy, any questions, comments at this point?
I just want to say, wow, that's incredible changes that were made. And I love that it's showing how to take something that could have been looked at totally negative and putting a positive approach to it. And really, setting out that community for success rather than failure as it had been previously set up to do.
Nice. Yeah. One of the things I like on too is because it was a kind of a driven endeavor, they had good evidence to document their impact, and they could show the pre and the post explicitly and specifically to a call hotline. So just a really great way to document impact and success, which is always a nice one. All right.
I kind of am amazed that as I'm transforming thinking in my head of using the information we gather from the help and the hotlines as almost a continuous light on our needs assessment. It will share with us emerging trends. It will share with us proximity of emerging trends if we learn how to navigate the data better and collect it and utilize it. It would be very powerful.
That's awesome. That's exactly where our heads are here too. How can we do this so it's an ongoing resource for you to figure out how to distribute your other resources and educational opportunities to really make this work. And also, as part of your thing about like, how do we target and show value, this is something we could be thinking about early and late and be, you know, just like they did, seeing how things change when you apply this knowledge.
Yeah, great. So this is the moment where we get to stop talking and we get to listen to you a lot more. So we're gonna kick our heels up now and then hand the work over to you. But if it would be helpful for us if we could, well, we've got Tammy as an expert to tell us a little about one of the programs, if to the extent that they do similar things, all the programs. We thought things like maybe if you could walk us through like a typical call or an email to the lines, what a typical day might look like at the call center, some of the common uses of the system, what's working well. Maybe we'll talk about what's not, but that'd be great if you could just tell us a little about how it works.
Okay, perfect. You know, so it depends day to day, month to month, year to year, what the typical call is like. I'll just push through some of the calls that we have going on right now. And really this call could come in on any of our hotlines. You know, with COVID-19, we have a lot of people who call and they've either been exposed or they have questions about COVID. And the way that it's impacted them. So a lot of the things that we're getting right now is that it's impacting people financially on a huge part. So the thing that we have the capability and the skill through our staff to do is they'll call in and they might be looking for assistance to pay for their rent. So when we're talking to them, we know that if they're if they're looking for assistance for their rent, then there's some other issues going on there as well. So we're going to ask that next question. We're going to find out what other financial needs that they might have. Do they have a need for food? We do a lot of listening to the background noise of what's going on. If we're on a call and we hear a baby or young kids in the background, then we can go a step further and find out if they need diapers or they need formula, or if they're signed up for WIC or food stamps. With the new program that we're doing right now with FEMA, we're even going another step further and we're finding out what their support system is like, how they're doing emotionally, and then if they need us to connect them to another resource for a virtual outreach counselor or mental health counseling. Within our database system, we have those resources for the state that we can get them connected. And we could get 10 of those calls a day. We could get 50 of them each. You know, we could get calls from people who have just simple questions of what the symptoms are. So there's really no typical call, no typical day, other than people are looking for information. And along with the information, they're wanting referral. What works well? What works really well is if there's answers to their questions, if there's referral and information from the communities to provide them to. And I think that's one of the biggest things. With our 211 hotline, we do have a really neat capability. It's called 211 Counts. And what that does is takes the information from our call database system, and I can explain that here in a little bit, and puts it into a statewide database that talks about the needs within a community. So it can break it down. You can do state, you can do county, you can do city, you can do congressional district, school district. You can break it down into a lot of different areas and see what the needs for that particular area that were met, and then those needs that were unmet. And I kind of see the scenario with Virginia being something that could be really applicable to meeting the needs and figuring out of, you know, we have a lot of people who have financial needs for rent. So maybe looking at, is there a specific area within the state that is really one of the bigger areas that we have that need? and then looking at the resources within there, instead of just providing individuals with money to pay for their rent, what other kind of things can be done in that community? Can we do something such as like a job program or an education program to enhance their skills and abilities to improve their marketability for getting a job, and then that would decrease their chance of having financial needs. So I think this is a really cool idea to work well within the system together. But we only have that for 211. That would be really cool if we could get something like that data analysis for the Iowa Concern Hotline as well, to be able to kind of see where the high volume of calls are coming in and what their specific needs are, and where we're falling short of meeting those needs in the communities, and what we can do to upscale those situations.
Hey, Tammy.
Yep.
This is Chad. So on the 211, those analytics, I'm assuming include the other 74
Yep.
counties. Do you see that data as well, or are you only able to look at the 25 that we service?
Nope, we can look at the entire state. And you can actually, anybody has access to it. If you go to iowa211.org, and there's a tab called 211 Counts. One of the things is we collaborate with the state of Nebraska in our database and our system. Oh, hold on. So you'll see that Nebraska is listed on there as well. But if you go onto that page, you can actually choose the data to display, like I said, from any zip code, any county, any congressional district, the state. So anybody in the state can go on and look at this information.
Awesome.
The 211 here is so awesome. It's really cool that you're a part of it. We've worked with partners in other states, and their 211 resources are so limited. So it's just amazing what we have here.
Yeah, and we started doing this like 2 years ago with the 211 counts, and it's just really neat to be able to see where the needs are in the community, where we're lacking on services and availability. So I think that that's one part of the equation, is knowing the area of needs. But I think, you know, what we miss and what we're not really up to par on is, you know, some people like to focus on, oh, well, we need to get more financial resources there. But do we really need more financial resources, or do we need more educational resources in order to help those people to improve their situation rather than just provide services to them?
Nice. Super great. Okay, well, I'm going to stay on the same theme, but a question that we've been curious about is basically, what information do you collect? How do you record phone calls? Are they transcribed? What kind of information comes in, and how do you retain, to the extent you retain it? What do you do?
So we actually use a contact database, and in our database, it's a contact and a resource database. So we record every single call that comes in. We manually enter it into the system. We use a program that's called iCarol. And each one of our call records or contact records, mentally I have to switch over to that, since we're doing so many things more than just a phone call. We also have the capability of live chat, texting, email, and now with the FEMA grant, we're doing virtual contact, whether it be Zoom, WebEx, anything like that. So mentally, I have to switch over that it's not only a call, but it's a contact.
Right.
I can, and we can record any information in that we want. The primary information that we obtain is the caller's gender, the caller's age, if the person has utilized our services before. One of the things that we're starting to capture is the zip code of the person who's calling for demographic purposes. And our purpose mainly for that is to see where our calls are calling in and determining if we need to do more marketing in other areas or if we're doing really good in some. But I think it could also really help to know where the greatest needs are and what communities really could, you know, really benefit from other programming or other assistance. We do a little brief description of the call, and then we have various call topics. And I can just go through some of those for the Iowa Concern that we do. We note whether the caller is talking about some form of abuse, physical, sexual, substance abuse, emotional. If they're looking for basic needs such as food, rent, utility. If they're calling for COVID-19 information, educational needs. If they're experiencing some sort of emotional stress, mild, moderate, severe, suicidal. If they're unemployed, if it's a family situation, we're capturing financial information. If it's a bankruptcy, agricultural and non-agricultural, just general consumer debt. If it's personal financial stress, we are working with the Human Sciences personal financial specialists and doing one-on-one financial education. They're doing that program remotely. We do have an attorney on staff to provide free legal education. So we capture if it's a legal call, a medical call, if somebody's looking for tax assistance. And we can grow this, we can change it, we can do whatever we want with the call topics as far as adding and taking away. And then we're also going to capture how we handled that call. So what the outcome was. If we referred them somewhere, we're going to capture where we referred them to. If our attorney provided information, we're going to capture that as well.
Cool. A clarifying question. At present, do all 7 calls now have hotlines, have phone, text, chat, and virtual? Do they all offer all these options now or not?
Nope, they don't. So
okay.
The Iowa Concern will have all of those. We're in the final stages of getting texting set up, and then Iowa Concern will have all of those. Healthy Families will have, all of them have email, phone call, and then Healthy Families will also have live chat. 211 has email, phone call, and texting. And then answer line is phone and email.
Okay, great. So is your live chat, it's truly a live chat. It's not a bot, a chat bot, it's a person, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, great. Very good. I'll just to the team here as we're talking about this, any members of the team, if you've got questions on what we're in, feel free to pop in with questions for Tammy. I don't want to move us through to new topics before we have mind where we're at. This is all very helpful. Yes.
Super helpful. So are the, in just thinking about the parameters under which these different hotlines are working, it sounds like there are different budgetary parameters for them.
Yep.
Are there different like bureaucratic, if you make changes, do you have to go up different bureaucratic angles, or is this like the same group that goes up? I mean, I guess I'm trying to think if there were changes that were implemented.
Right.
How messy does that get across hotlines?
So all of the hotlines are totally independent of one another. Healthy Families and Teen Line, our contract there is through the Department of Public Health. Iowa Concern, it just depends on what grants that we're doing regarding that. But they've never ever specifically stated that we need to be doing anything specifically. Pretty much as long as we're getting statistics and information and data to them, that explain, our call volume and how we're impacting lives, then we've actually been able to handle that pretty much as we see fit. 211 is a little bit different since it's a collaboration with 5 other entities. So we're currently in the process. We've actually been doing this since 2000 with 211. We've occasionally had memorandums of understanding with the other entities. We are finally now just getting back to doing a very formal MOU between the entities, because we're actually looking at funding opportunities. And with doing the COVID response, we'll be getting funding from Iowa Department of Public Health, and then there's a couple private entities that are going to do donations to the 211 entity. So no strings attached. We don't have to do anything specifically other than provide data information about the calls that we take.
We like those kinds of projects. There's not a lot of strings. That sounds like sweet gig.
I like that. And I like the fact that we can change and adjust things. And even like with our 2 that we do with the Department of Public Health, the Healthy Families and Teen Line, pretty much if we make the suggestion and recommendation that something be changed and implemented, they're pretty quick to say, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So they're pretty workable.
Which bureau do you work with? We both said the same question at once. Which bureau at IDPH do you work with?
So with the Healthy Families and Teen Line, it's the Bureau of Family Health.
Okay. Do you work directly with Marcus, or who's your contact there?
So Marcus is one of the people. He actually is the bigwig, and then Annalise is the new person. She just took over for Janet Beeman in January. Annalise Pearson is her last name.
Okay. I haven't met her, but I work with Marcus on other things quite a bit.
Yeah, Marcus is great.
He's great. Okay, thank you.
I've got Anasak, did you have a question?
Trying to going through, it's all great. Thank you, Tammy, for explaining to us. And there's multiple things going on in each of your hotline. I just like to have a quick questions that have you recorded calls, and for each of the hotline, did you be able to take the data out? I mean, you be able to export the data and analyze this separately?
So when you say record the calls, do you mean like, do we physically record them and can go back and listen to them?
Yeah.
Do you record a whole call? Or?
Yeah, we do not, for confidentiality's sake, we do not currently record the phone calls coming in. We have that capability to, but we've never implemented it just for confidentiality's sake. So I'm not sure if we would want to start to do that. That would be a pretty good legal question, especially when we're handling calls that could be of legal nature where people are kind of apprehensive anyhow. So we would have to talk to the legal department to see, and determine if that would be something that we were willing to do or not. And then as far as like our call records, so any of our contacts within the system, I can actually export any information via an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
See.
And by contacts, do you mean the people who called in? Like if you have the name but you don't get their name, do you? Or do you get their?
Not necessarily. If it's a situation where we need to contact them back, or if they provide us with their name, then we'll document that. But otherwise, we keep the calls pretty confidential.
Do we need a data sharing agreement to get access to that data? I mean, any of this data that we're talking about, you mentioned the iCarol system.
So, I mean, the data that I can share would be anything related to the Iowa Concern Hotline. With the others, like 211, our calls I can share. I just can't share any data from the other ones other than what's in the 211 counts, which is public information. Healthy Families and Teen Line, I would have to get the Bureau of Family Health, Iowa Department of Public Health's permission.
Okay. So it sounds like Iowa Concerns is of the 7 calls, that's the lines, that's the one you have the most flexibility, autonomy with, is that right?
Right, yep. Yeah,
And-
since that was a
and-
program that was started by Extension, and it's not mandated by the government in any way, then we pretty much manage our data.
Okay. And that one has the phone, and that one has email and text as well?
Yep, and live chat.
And live chat, okay.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you for that response, Tammy. You did mention that you did have a brief description of the calls and some topics, right? So does that mean the person who responds to the call, they manually put in descriptions, and they have to type in the topics, right?
Yep, they'll type in, it's a text-filled box where they'll type in a call description. And then I have a checkbox now. We used to do a drop-down. We now have a checkbox so that if there's multiple call topics, we can capture all of the topics that they're calling about without having to add a lot of fields.
Good. Okay. We've probably talked about this a bit, but when we think about these kinds of things and we, trying to think about this, the data that are generated, the information that's collected, the data that are generated. So you have like a potentially a recording, you have the phone responder, the technician's notes, any callback information, kind of thinking if we kind of covered all of the kinds of data that you collect, this helps us to think about the kinds of things we can work with, essentially what information might we have to work with as we think about analytics and things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty much the information that we gather.
Okay. Okay. And I think we've covered this one. Oops, Cass and Deepak is.
My question might be more about this next one. I'll hold until we get this answer.
So
Okay.
all of the information is, iCarol is a web-based system. So all of the information on all the contacts are held in the database web-based system.
Okay.
I had a quick question. So on the basis of all the information that you write in using those check boxes or those Excel spreadsheets, do you perform any analytics, or does your organization perform any analytics on it?
So I do a monthly report for each of the hotlines that denotes how many total calls come in, the average length, the number of males and females, and then how many of each of the call topics we handled. And then I do a brief summary that recounts some of that information as well. So I actually take, because we're able to pull the statistics within iCarol, and then I transpose that information into an Excel spreadsheet, which I have set up that it auto-populates into charts and other information. So it's not just an Excel sheet, it's a pretty one with charts that get submitted.
Nice.
Thank you.
If this is a little bit of a placeholder, but if it's possible to share with us one of those reports, we've got several of the students on our teams are training in analytics and would be really keen to look to ways to give you some additional graphs and charts and kind of enhance what you're doing. And if you think about things that aren't in your report that you'd like in your report, like, boy, I'd really like to be able to see the data this way. I'd like to see trends or breakouts this way. We'll need some ideas and things for you as well. But if there are things that aren't in your reports that you'd like to see, we got some kids here that would just be really excited to kick in some additional support there.
And that makes me thoroughly excited because I like numbers, I like data, but I am not a data person as far as creating. And I initially went to one of those free summary report things, and then they, as soon as I put my information in order to do it as a PDF, they wanted to charge me $20 a month, and I'm like, you're kidding me. And so I know minimal about Excel, but was able to go in and set up some formulas. So I
Nice.
know that my reports can be hugely improved, and I'm loving this.
Yeah. Hey, I've got even better news. Our fee is only $19.99 a month. So we can save you a little.
Hey, Tammy, this is Chad again. I was just curious, as you drill down a little bit on, and I don't know, that's why I'm asking on the specific hotlines and call centers. Do you have a set of objectives or goals or missions that you're expecting those hotlines to accomplish, and you have the data at hand to be able to answer that's actually happening? And if not, that's what I would suggest you also focus with this group and to help you prove that your hotlines are doing what we want them to do.
That's a great idea, because, you know, as far as, you know, goals and missions, I mean, I can verbally tell them what it is, but we don't have anything written down, which might be a great thing. And, you know, with Healthy Families and Teen Line, those are going to be pretty continuous. But with Iowa Concern, it'll be kind of a fluid thing, just because of the fact that we do frequently get grants and programs that we're working on. And that would be a great idea, because one of the grants, I forgot to mention this, that we're working on is through the USDA with the National Farmer Ranch Stress Network, which currently we're in like almost the first full year of the grant that's been extended, but we're looking at expanding for another 3 years and turning utilizing the Iowa Concern Hotline as a regional call center for the 13 states in the north central area. So I think to be able to, you know, have the documentation, have it spelled out what our goals and our visions and our missions are, then that could really sell the other states on utilizing us as the regional hotline. And maybe we'll even expand to national hotline. We'll see.
I love the vision. Nice. Let me.
Oh wait, I have a question, a follow-up on that, on iCarol. So who maintains, it looks like, is iCarol a service that you tap into?
Yeah, so iCarol is actually a web-based service that when I first started working for the hotlines, we had 2 different database systems that we used. We utilized FileMaker Pro for documenting our Iowa Concern calls and having our Iowa Concern resource database. And that was a system that we totally created and worked okay. And then for 211, we were utilizing a system called Iris for the web. That system is now defunct after about, I think we've been on iCarol for about 6 years now. We did about a 2.5, 3-year study with the other 211 entities to be able to find a platform that would be very useful for an information and referral database that could also be a contact recorder as well. So within our database for iCarol, we're able to have resources and need-based and taxonomy for the entire state that we can actually put that reference referral right into our call record so that we can pull up the need-based information from that. And I can share, I definitely will be more than happy to share the iCarol database so you guys can see what it is, if that would be helpful.
That'd be great.
It would. I don't know if it'll be this call, maybe another follow-up, but it'd
Yep.
be awesome to have you share your screen and go through like, what does it look like when someone calls, and like, what are you pulling down and the things that you're hitting, and you know, the database as well, but just to see the process is super useful.
Yep.
Let me see. I think we've kind of talked about this. I think you've indicated some of the COVID impacts,
Hmm.
but I do want to kind of zoom. This is kind of naturally where our conversation is going anyways, this last one, and we talk about your pain points. Essentially, the things that aren't working well. There's a couple things we can do here while we've got a team of free labor to work on this problem. Is we can work on fixing something that's not working well. We are going to work on adding to some things, expanding on some things that are already working well. And we can also work on kind of some conceptual things about, especially as you think about future proposals and things, kind of work on some concept and beta project ideas for like kind of moving the system into some additional areas to enhance its value and kind of abilities. So are there pain points in the sense of, are there things that aren't working well, or the problem areas that we should be thinking about?
I think when we talk about the problem areas, the pains, it goes back to the how I report the data, how we get our story out there and information. So I think the biggest pain is making sure that we are reporting good data, that it looks good, that it looks professional, and that's really saying the story of what we do here at the hotlines.
Okay, good. Very helpful. Okay. I'm gonna just give us one last one here, and then we'll show you a few things that we've been thinking about a little bit. And maybe this question will come back to this one at the end, but are there some ways that you feel like you'd like to have us help out? It's kind of the ask of how can we help with the programs? It sounds like the one that, if I think about the 7, it's like I have a concern maybe that we could put our team on, because you've got a little flexibility there, and that's kind of a quicker onboarding for that one.
Right.
It sounds like
and I think
analytics might be something.
Yeah, I think analytics and just looking at how we enter our data, is there better ways that we can be more effective? Is some of the terminology that we're utilizing not the best terminology to use? So I think really to look at some of those as far as our data statistics and what we enter things as, I think it's a great thing. I don't think anybody has ever come in and said, how can we improve, your data and what information you're providing about the hotline? So I'm super pumped about this. Awesome.
Well, we are super excited to be able to help out. It's an honor and a pleasure to be able to work on this. These are super, super important. They're helpful. They meet people in crisis and with real needs. And to the extent that we can help you on scale to meet demand, especially at this critical time, and expand your reach and scope and document impact, we're really committed to your cause and want to help out where we can.
Perfect.
Okay. Let us just show a couple of things here, and I'm going to turn this over to some members of the team here, some things we're thinking about.
All right, so well, thank you for the information, Tammy, and that was really useful. Oh, by the way, it sounds like you pretty satisfied with the iCarol database, right?
So I don't know if you could classify it as being satisfied. We primarily chose that because of the fact that we collaborate with the other 211 entities. So it is, out of all the call database and resource database systems, it was the one at the time that met our needs. So if we do any changing of that, it would have to be a unanimous decision to change that within the collaboration of the other entities.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, sorry, Cass, go ahead.
Well, I'm just following up on that. So you use iCarol for all your hotlines, not just the 211 hotline that you do your coordination with? Okay,
yeah.
Just want to verify. Thank you.
All right. And Tammy, you mentioned that about the Excel, right? That which you do more. I happen to be the guy who teach Excel in Iowa State.
Yay!
Yeah. So I teach it's a course called Computer Science 113, and I teach that for 5 years, and it has been 7,000 students so far.
Wow.
It was it. It's like 1,200 in falls, so that's been a lot of fun. But yeah, you guys, well, if any of the person on your team like to sit in, they will be very welcome.
Awesome.
It'll be fun. Now, here's something that we kind of think about before we get to talk to you, and I would like to, well, maybe just share with you that, okay, before we know that what you already have, then this is something that we think that is definitely possible. So first of all, then this is like a very brief idea of a dashboard that we can create for Hotline, and we hope that would help. And this is very brief though. On your left, you see like a different hotline, and on the right, it's maybe like a trend of the call, and on the bottom right, it's maybe the system classify, or it may be classified by the keyword that well, your people put in at the descriptions, and it might show as the visual style on which topic that it's maybe trending right now, or maybe it's like a pressing concern right now in a quick and almost real-time fashion. All right, next one would be something that could be some kind of sample of a dashboard that's showing a performance of the hotline centers. So maybe this is showing about the number of calls and the trend that is maybe increased compared to the previous week. Mm-hmm. And the bottom left, it's maybe kind of a heat map of like the time of the day and the time in a week that maybe we have more or less call. I'm not sure whether you want to have this or not, but it might be useful for the person who manages the hotline to see how to distribute the resources. Right? And then maybe there's abandoned call if there's too many calls and you don't have enough people. And how about it, abandoned calls comparing to wait time? Well, sometimes they have to wait, right? And would that increase or would that decrease? And then you can look into the issue. So this is, again, another one of the ideas that I think we can implement. And this one is maybe another idea, again, it is looking into incoming calls, abandoned calls versus wait time and average talk time. And it might also show each person performance as well, in case you might need to see that. And then maybe like the increase or decrease in performance, or how you can transfer the call to each person. They could show in different kind of metrics. All right, now, but the next one, it's one thing that I think that we should also be able to make it happen if you like to have. We're thinking of sometimes if you call into maybe AT&T, Best Buy, or the places that there's a lot of people calling in, right? And then they usually ask that, oh, can you say a topic? I mean, the bank or credit card, and then you say something, and the system asks back that, is it what you're saying? And I hope that if we're gonna make that, then we can make a better one. I mean, the better side of that. It's not the one that you have to yell with a lot before you get connected. But then I would call this as like a hotline auto call transfer options. It might help mitigate a number of calls before you have to utilize an actual person to transfer that person. Maybe it kind of help to log, or if you are overwhelmed with the call at the moment, then maybe the system can take a log of the incoming call, and then you can have someone call them back. Mm-hmm. This might be better than they don't get to speak to anyone, or at least any system at all. Then this one may be achieved by the voice recognitions, or maybe speech to text, and it could get classified by the keyword that the person's saying, and we can classify into some classes that we predefine, and that is the meaning of the classification algorithms. So let's say if they're talking about like family issues or, well, at some point, I hear you talking about that if you hear like baby crying, then you can get into different things, right? But they're also concerned about the privacy of the call as well. But anyway, we can talk more about that. And maybe if the person says something, some keywords, then you can classify and you can put note into the system, and it could transfer the call to the correct expert. That is possible. Now, next one, it would be like a really brief pipeline that this thing could happen. So right now, Tammy, you mentioned that you have moved the hotline to a remote call system, right? So everything is virtual and it's basically a cloud-based or internet-based phone, right?
Yep.
So this is happening to all of the hotline right now?
So this is just to the ones that are in the Urbandale office. So Iowa Concern, Teen Line, Healthy Families, and 211.
All right.
And we actually use In Contact or Nice In Contact for our phone platform.
Oh, so it's called In Contact?
Yep.
Oh,
Great.
look at that. Also, so it's phone system, Nice In Contact. Now, see that.
Yep.
So that is great. So right now there's multiple services. Sometimes we call a cloud-based phone, and which is pretty much the same thing. And I think that's great. They also will keep track of your data and put some call history into some kind of database.
Right.
And then when you wish, we can export that, and we can make analysis from that easily, which is great. So I think this is a very brief like pipeline. So we get the data from those cloud-based phone, and within your restriction and privacy concern, then we get the data, or maybe we can de-identify the data before it's get out to the next system, and then we can generate a lot of data and report, right? So that's a brief idea. But after I look, after I hear a lot of good information from you, and we also go look at the different system that you've been using, then maybe next time we can have a like more direct idea that's going to be useful for you.
And I really love the dashboards with being able to, and I don't know, I mean, because the dashboards are a lot like the 211 counts, because that's a dashboard that kind of gives that information about the needs, the call length, and where they're coming from. And that's in real time, and it's on a public platform. So one of the things that I'm frequently getting is calls from individuals who have a meeting at 2 o'clock. Can you get me this data before I go to the meeting? And yeah, I can if I'm in the office and available, but if we had something up on the Iowa Concern website or on Extension, website that could have a hotline dashboard of all the different hotlines where they could, we could do an API between iCarol and the dashboard, then it could just automatically pull that information over if we can write our own API. I'm not the expert in that, so our phone system already has all the dashboards with abandoned call rate and how many incoming calls, how many staff are on. So we have all that within our web-based phone system, but I think it would be incredible to do something, with the platform so that we could have it, call-based and needs-based, as far as what the stats are for the different hotlines. That would be amazing.
Yesterday, the group, I talked a little bit about the need of having some type of tool that would show the return on investment for a community back to the university. And this would be a great metric to add to that, to say, okay, how many people in this county have used one of these hotlines, and here's the count for that, and that would be really neat to be able to tie back to a community.
Yeah, that would be incredible. In our
Okay.
current phone system, I know you were talking about, you know, being able to do kind of the automated phone system. We can do that within our current phone system, but one of the things that we have learned in talking to people and doing this is people who are in need and looking for a service absolutely hate press 1, press 2, and listening to the things. They would prefer to talk to a person. But that may change down the road because that's the way a lot of the systems are, is that you either press a number or talk into it and it gets to the certain person. And I think just because of the fact that, you know, this is a human service kind of thing, a person to person, the quicker we can get somebody to a live person, the better chance we're going to have to meet that need without frustrating them even more.
Yeah, I totally get that. So usually when I call anywhere and then there's like robot talking to me, I usually like try to press 0 and
Yep,
try to yell like,
to get rid of them quicker.
talk to agent, talk to human or something. Sometimes 0 or 9, then usually it's like that.
Yep.
It works sometimes. It's not all the
Yep.
time, but
I am just like that. Yep.
yeah. So another one that I don't have this on slide, but I think data science and machine learning could make happen for you. It's we may be making a chart or dashboard that's showing a chart of the topics or trend. That, for example, if this COVID-19 questions popping up, or renting assistant, or some topic, and but then it would need the system to access to the conversations. But again, that will be something that is really tricky. Now, if the person who responds to the call, if they type in the keywords of the topic or description of the topic, if they make it detailed enough, or if they hit those keywords, or if you make all of the check boxes, and the person who responds to the call checks those completely, then we can also make use of that as well. Or maybe another thing that I'm thinking of right off top of my head right now, it's after if we have like large enough historical data of the topic that appear on the calls, and the outcome of the call, maybe you transfer to expert, maybe you transfer to legal education, maybe you transfer to a different kind of expert, then we can also like train a machine learning model. And then at the beginning, earlier of the incoming calls, if the person who respond to call check some topics, then it might show, this machine learning can show prediction that, okay, this call maybe need some certain thing. It's kind of like assisted to the person. But of course, it's not override expert or anything, but it's maybe like some reminder to the expert who responding to the call that, okay, this call maybe also need this and that. It could become like a good assistant.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
I want to follow up on that, and then I have a different question. But you know, we're talking a lot about phone calls, but you have these other options for capturing data as we go through. So if I were to text in, I mean, text probably not, but email, is there anything where they go through a platform where they're already selecting this, pre-selecting? Like, can they just go to your website and say, I have a question about farming, and then that's where it already goes through that sort of process, but it does it digitally rather than?
I mean, we could probably, you know, I'm not sure with our live chat, because that, I mean, that would be through the live chat system. So we can probably set it up digitally, where if they put in a certain question, or if they select a certain question, then it can respond a certain way. If that, is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm not even saying we have to. I'm just curious if you have. I guess I'm wondering, what's the door into your services? You know, is it a website that people are clicking on a link? Is it, you know, what are you doing?
So for live chat, if they go to the Iowa Concern website, that's how they're able to get into the live chat. With email, you can also get there through the website by emailing an expert. We are also listed as the experts on, the statewide extension website. So if they click on that one, then it'll come through to us. And then with texting, there'll just be information on our website, on our promotional materials. The one unique thing that we are able to do is we are able to utilize the same phone number for texting as we do for phone call. So it's going to be the consistency with the 1-800-447-1985. So since, quote unquote, extension owns that hotline number, we were able to do that. So that way somebody doesn't have to remember a different number. So hopefully we're going to be able to get that ramped up and get it set up. Our texting and our live chat are both done through our database system through iCarol. So then we don't have to have another platform for that option.
Okay. And are your links, all those different places where they can enter? I'm thinking like, the many doors enter into the same system sort of approach that we often try with state government to think about. Do you have links already on like Your Life Iowa, or on, I'm guessing you're on the 211 website directly, things like that?
So 211 is a little bit different. I don't think that there's any direct links on 211 to get to us.
Okay.
They can actually click on the contact us and find out who we are. We used to have, when we were on our old system, we used to actually have where they could send a direct email and it would come directly to the specific one. But with the new website, they've changed that, and I'm not certain if they're going to change that or improve it. So Iowa Concern is probably the best site to go look at.
Okay. But I think what I'm hearing is there's no like central portal that then it's that portal that's shared everywhere. It's like
right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's based on each of the hotlines independently.
Okay. Okay. And then I just have a follow-up question about recording the phone calls. I totally understand the privacy issue. I think that's super important. But I'm wondering if it's a conceptual problem or an actual problem. And so I just want to ask a few follow-up, open to whatever answers you have here. But if the data were securely stored, so no one could jump in and find them and listen to them and copy them, everyone who uses them has signed all the appropriate agreements and everything like that. And then machine learning is used, so it's kind of an algorithm that goes through and draws and finds answers to questions rather than a person listening and identifying issues. Do you have a conceptually, is that an issue for you with privacy? I get there are other privacy issues like how do the people feel who call, and lawyers also always have lots and lots of issues.
Right.
But for you personally, as the person who's running it, if you had secure storage and you were using machine learning, would you think privacy was a concern?
I think whenever you're talking about web-based and security, there's always going to be an issue and a concern with privacy, just because of the many options that people have for hacking and getting into systems. I think our legal staff, just because of that confidentiality and that security, would have issues with it. I know that when we first switched to our phone system and I was talking to him, he's like, we would have to really, really do some deep looking and deep thinking if we were to record the calls, and determine if just putting that verbal disclaimer at the beginning would be enough to protect us if something did happen.
And when you're saying our legal, are you talking about ISU legal, or are you talking about extension legal, or are you talking about a different organization altogether?
A combination of both. So our legal would be the attorney that we have on staff with the hotlines. So he's the person that I've talked to. He's been on the hotline since 87 or 88. So just historically knowing the callers who have called in, he's frequently asked if the call is being recorded, if the contents are being recorded, and a lot of people get very defensive. Even when he says, no, this is confidential, they still question him whether, it's being recorded and stuff. So I know he has some stuff, and then, we do work with Iowa State Legal, so we would have to determine from them, what protocols and plans would need to take place.
So one thing, I'll just plant this seed, and I don't know if this is anything that we should even consider this summer, but just for you in general, in thinking about this long term, what I do is work with people to figure out how to get into really secure data and utilize it for actually these sort of things for public, So like I have several dozen legal agreements with state agencies on using their secure identifiable data. When you fill out a form for state government, it goes to the state government. Some of that comes back here at Iowa State and is housed here. So we've had really good luck working with legal, IT, security, and whatnot. And there's a massive insurance, I think it's like $50 million insurance plan that if any of these sort of things get breached, there are opportunities. So in terms of can it be done? Absolutely. Is it a hassle to do? For sure. So my question is like, would anyone want to do it? And the answer is never to go to the lawyers and ask. Like, they will always tell you no. Like, lawyers are risk averse on purpose. That is their job. Are you telling me to stop, Chad? Or are you telling me that's what they'll say? I'm like, oh no, we're just getting started. No, we love lawyers. We work with them a lot. We work, everything that gets done has to be approved by the various attorney generals throughout the state and through our ISU legal, and that is totally fine. But the question isn't what they think. The question is really like, would this be useful for extension? Would this be useful for you? My concern would be, would people hang up? I mean, if people wouldn't do it, then I don't think it's useful. But if that's the big concern.
Right. And I mean, you wouldn't know that until you actually tried and implemented it. And, you could see then from the call hangups, if those increase, then you could just kind of ascertain the fact that if that's the only change that was made, then that's what's causing people to hang up. As a staffing source, I think it would be great to be able to record calls. Because then I can do a lot of staff training and staff development if there's areas of improvement that can be done. I do have the opportunity with the system to be able to listen in and supervise calls. But Chad was talking about his 8 Zoom meetings a day, and with working remotely, I think today I should have had about 9 Zoom meetings, and I decided to skip out on 2 of them. Because I needed to get other things done, so that would give me the opportunity, not to go back and listen to every single call, but just sporadically to be able to listen calls, to do quality assurance, quality improvement. And then if we did get a call, if Dr. Lawrence got a call saying from somebody who was frustrated and angry because of something that occurred, then I could very easily go back and listen to a phone call, and not that I ever want to disprove a caller, but then I can provide information and clarification to the powers to be to show exactly how that situation was handled. So,
is there an option to ask, do you mind if it's recorded? And if they say no, all right, it's not recorded, they say, I don't care, and you have it. I mean, is there a first step here? Is there a phased approach?
I could definitely check with our phone service provider to see if, because our whole phone system is scripted, so we could do a scripting where you could say, if you approve for this to be recorded, press 1. If you don't want it recorded, press 2. And then through the script base, it can either be recorded or not be recorded. I could see with them, we can do pretty much anything with the scripting of it, so I don't see why that would be an issue.
Consent can also be implied if you just say it at the beginning and it's in your agreement too.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at the clock and we've got 8 minutes left. And I want to make sure we have time to fork our team into a productive direction. So we've talked about a lot of things, and and my sense is that we're on board. We all share a common vision that we're going to work together for a couple months on this, and we're going to work. Our team's going to work with you, Tammy, to add some additional kind of utility and maybe some capacity, technical capacity or technological capacity to your system. Does that seem okay?
That sounds wonderful.
Okay. And from what I've heard, it sounds like it works pretty well. The time frame our team has is doing some work on the analytics. So if we can get, we'll send some follow-ups of some action items, but I'm thinking if we can see the kind of analytics that are currently produced, as comprehensive a view as we can get of the current analytics coming out of your system, that'll be a good starting place for us. And then we'll want to talk a little bit about what kind of data you can share with us so that we can start to work on some additional analytics for you and things. And that's probably a two-step process, some old data to play with and to do some work with. But one of the things I think I'd like to just float out here is I think our team's got a great ideas, and Adisac's really spearheaded this about ways to add some additional utility to your system, some system, I don't want to call it redesign, but system enhancement. And in our discussion, it sounds like there's a lot of lines in the water for funding and things. And I'd like us to I want to plant the seed to say the work we're doing this summer, I'd like us to thought this as kind of a demonstration project that would help you to go after future funding as you think about how to continue to fund your programs and how to expand your programs. We want to be strategic that the work our team does you can see that as dropping into the next proposal and the next proposal. So we'll do the analytics I hear, but especially on the system development, adding machine learning and adding some automation and things. I think those are great ones that could really, I think those would be winning pitches in some of the proposals you write to bring in some funding. And with times tight right now on funding and things, this might be a kind of a really good one for you to pursue. And we've got a good team. Teams around campus that can help with that, and we can kind of show you what this looks like by working with you for a couple months.
Awesome.
Cass? Okay. Had any concerns, comments, questions from you?
I just want to say thank you. I'm really excited about this opportunity to work with you guys. I think that I think things are going to be improved, enhanced. I love it. I'm
Awesome.
Like I said, I'm not a data person. I've created the reports, so I created the old 211 website. I'm not a website developer, so when we moved and changed to this one, I told everybody that I was the only person who could say it was new and improved because the old one stunk, and that's because I did it. I'll show you some of our old reports and show you what I created and changed them into, and I'm looking forward to how we can display our data and really sell our product that we have with the hotline. So I'm super excited.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big goal of ours is to give you some additional analytics so that you have a better view of what's going on, and so you can sell your program and stand out among our regional partners. I want to help you to be a real standout.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Cass and Chad.
No, I was just, Adisak, do you want to go first? Did you have any last questions?
I have one quick questions. I take a look at the Iowa 211 and I saw that you capture a lot of the demographic data from what is called and what is needed, right? So is it just captured from the phone numbers originally from?
No, the first thing that we ask when we get a call on 211 is what their zip code is, so that we can capture that demographic. And then the only other required thing that we capture is their gender. There's some of the programs that actually capture the financial status of the person, and that's based on some of the programming that they do within their own system, so they're able to capture more of that information. But since we don't actually administer any program, we don't capture that information.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This has been awesome. And Tammy, honestly, so incredibly helpful. We could have had a team of people here and not gotten this much good information. So thank you very, very much. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's an awesome program you've got going there.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay, so we'll be in contact by email with you, Tammy, to start to kind of coordinate things, and we'll try and set up a system so that we're not sending 4 emails a day. But obviously, for us early on, we're still a little in the dark. So the more information we can get now, the more time we have to work on it. So we'll probably try and set some follow-ups with you fairly soon, information, and we'll see it to have some follow-up questions. And the quicker we can get that, then the more we can produce for you over the next couple months.
Sounds perfect.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for being here. Tammy and Chad, I know you're both real busy, and thanks for letting us work with you, and looking forward to it.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Chad.
Hey,
Thank you
Chad,
very much.
Yeah.
I
Thank you,
know you're
guys.
taking off. Does 1 o'clock or 8 o'clock work better for, let's say 8:30 or 1 o'clock for you?
Are you talking about?
Whichever one's best for you. I'm open to either one of those times.
1 o'clock's great. I'll send an invite.
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, Tammy.
Thank you, guys. Have a great
Thank
night.
You too. And then us will stay for a second.
Oh, okay.
Hey, what'd you learn?
Oh.
I think we learned that Andy needs coffee.
All right, drank some.
Hey.
I typed a lot
You
there.
think coffee?
I typed a lot.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Sounds like. Okay.
I think one
Yeah,
of the,
let's.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think with the phone call issue, I don't know what they mean by privacy, but I'm sure we can, before we don't even need to listen to the video. We can, when we're transcribing it, we can definitely remove any names, any addresses throughout the entire call. So I don't know if that would be beneficial. Do we need people's names?
No.
Not
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah, I feel like their privacy is the last thing or like their personal, how should I say it? Their personal info
Yeah.
is the last thing we need.
They're not currently collecting that. I mean, so the privacy issue isn't because we have their addresses or names, because all they have is their zip code and they don't get names. But you could do re-identification with lots of other things potentially. That's what people would be worried about. So if I'm living in a small rural area and I say, wow, well, me and my 5 kids were at the store and this woman came up to me and said, I hate Black people. Well, suddenly that just now says you get all this information that you can say, well, in this town, there's likely like 3 families that could be, or something like that.
Yep,
So,
of course.
so that's re-identification is the bigger problem here.
And actually, I was also just thinking the same thing. Like when we were talking about privacy, and like, so there is one thing that the lawyers won't be happy with, like sharing private information. But one thing is that this may actually, like, taking information from people may actually cause damage to the core idea of the program. Because, for example, I'm just giving an example. Let's say there is one family that is having financial issues, and right now we will be like kind of causing trouble between institutions. For example, there is one institution, like child removal institution, that says that we want to take away kids from families that are not equipped with the resources to take care of children. And if so, no family is going to say that, like, give that kind of information where there's a chance that they may be harmed or damaged, because this is a government institution and that's also a government institution. So like there can be a big conflict of interest. So, yep.
Yeah, I don't know that we'll pass that barrier. I just was curious if that was a conceptual or legal issue for. But it sounds like there's a lot to do analytically, and that we can do a lot to clean up there. I wish we could just like give them a whole new system, but we could at least give them some cool dashboards. What are y'all thinking?
Exactly. I mean, if we get Tammy's current Excel sheets, I think we can create a very good dashboard. That's like the simplest thing to do, and it will be very, very much beneficial too.
So Chad keeps talking about this return on investment tool to show what is working in the community. And that's not really captured in the dashboard. You can count the number of people and the number of referrals, but maybe not what's successful. So I don't know if that's beyond the scope of what we're thinking about, but
Well, that is
we brought
interesting.
that up as that. Yeah, what's that, Adesek?
Well, that is interesting. So the whole talk, I just, well, at first I think I did relief. At the beginning, I hope for the worst, like if they just use like an actual phone and nothing got collected, that would be the worst thing. But yeah, okay, they've been using a lot of system and there's data pouring in database already. Of course, we can, when they decide that they're comfortable to share with us, then we can go ahead on those. About a recording call, I totally understand that. It's very tricky. If it's like bank or things and you call in, then they say the call will be monitored. Of course, you need a service, right? Say, yeah, but this is people need help, then sometimes they're not comfortable. Again, that's their call. I mean, the client call. Now, the cast point that the chats, I keep coming back to the like kind of successful, right, return on investment. I think maybe they can, they might need to share with us the metrics that they use, right? So how many calls coming in and how they determine how successful of those calls. So maybe the person got help, or how they determine that. Is it at the end, would they have like polling system, just like how you've been successfully, how are you happy with the call? Press 1, and have you get help on what you need? I saw some company did that. Then press 1 or 2, then that could be a metric, right? And then if you can collect that, then we can report that. Okay, how many people we help on different issues. I think that chat would definitely want it, right? And that would be aligned with the future proposal, the future funding, and financial things. So basically, if whatever data we can get our hands on, then we can get it to, will make something happen. Now, the big question is, what data can we gonna get the access to?
Yeah.
This
But
will
we
be an
now have
interesting
Tammy's
one.
name, which is huge, right? Like we've been trying to Sean and I have had numerous meetings with Chad where we've asked many of these questions, and we've asked for the data, and we've asked if we needed data sharing agreements to get signed before y'all came on. And we haven't had that access. So now that we know Tammy, we can just start contacting her directly. And I would say all of that contact should be coordinated so she's not hearing from 10 of us, but how do we want to, I think we need to do follow-ups with Tammy. So who's going to be responsible for that?
Let's do this, Cass. Let's chat a little bit about that side of who to contact. What would be good for the team to do is to put together your request list. What I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of in concept, I'd like to schedule a number of meetings with her, probably starting next week, something early next week, and then maybe something late next week. And if it can be basically, she sends us some stuff and then we look at it, you look at it as a team, and you write up questions and things, and then have a follow-up with her. So let's kind of build a list of questions and then funnel those into a single meeting, so we don't email her with every question or call her with every question. Get those into a kind of some really concentrated moments. And then we'll talk a little bit, Cass, I want to pick your brain on this about how best to kind of make those connections and contact. But Adesek, for your team, Deepak, you guys, think about, what do you want to know? Based on this, what are you gonna want from her? I know I asked her we're going to want the data, some of the data, whatever she can give us, and we're going to want to see what analytics and reports they're using. Those are the two foundationals to my mind. But what else do you want from her? Do we just need her to deliver stuff, or do we want to screen share and walk through the system? I think that would be helpful for the system design kinds of things. But what do we need for analytics? I'd also like to just say, I think it's really good for us to look at this as an opportunity to showcase some of our machine learning capacity. I think this is an area where we can really move them forward and add value and demonstrate kind of a data science strength. And I think it's really, really high value for future funding Cass? Puzzling?
I have thoughts on that second one, but on the first one, practically, what I think might be beneficial, and I'd love to get your guys' feedback, is I'd love to invite her early in the week to actually give us a presentation, and low key, like don't prep for it, whatever, but where she shares her screen and she walks through a pretend call. Like someone just called me, and then we see the screen and we see what she's pointing and clicking at. Because sometimes the data that you get out of these systems does not, I use a lot of administrative data, and it's usually pretty bad. And oftentimes it's so helpful to actually see what they're inputting and then see how it gets outputted. It's really helpful to see the discrepancies there or what's really good. But I find that that process of watching someone go through their inputting has been super helpful for understanding what's happening on the back end. Because usually there's more work on the inputting side. And on the back end, people keep the data for exactly what we're talking about for reports, but they don't do analysis. Like these big agencies that are spending hundreds of millions of dollars may only have, like Department of Ed, I think has 4 full-time analysts across the whole department. And that's for all the education from preschool to college in Iowa. So no one has time to really do analysis. They just have time to write their reports. So the back end of data, these data pipelines are often really terrible. And it would be really nice to see the front end so that we can understand the back end better, I think. So I would have her just walk that through with us. And maybe the data are gonna be beautiful. That's not ever my experience, but she also surprised me. So that I could be totally wrong. But I think that'd be helpful to see and then have her hand us her reports. And I think I really like Deepak's idea of just like mimicking those reports is step one. That's our like C grade, we've got it done. If we can create a dashboard that does those reports, it'd be great.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. So
and then we
should
could ask her,
secret.
what's that?
Deepak, what do you want to say?
Oh, I was just asking, like, if we like automate all the dashboards, that's a C grade project. Okay, and so what is A grade? Like, I'm just curious.
I just mean if we do exactly what they're doing and give them nothing more than they're currently doing, except it saves her from exporting it and running it to Excel and it's done. Like, well, that's a little win. But is there anything? What else can we add? What's the value added we bring to this project? You know, is there anything that's public facing versus just her? What, you know what I mean? We can think a lot more about how the data are stored, the data pipeline itself, the indicators that are used. If we see all of the information streaming in, we might be able to think of a few additional things that we can add to it.
All right.
So. Tammy actually, she mentioned that she liked the idea of having a live dashboard or somewhere that is available. So when management or when someone want to have a report, then so basically, I think she might mention chat. When chat want to report something, then doesn't have to call Tammy every time. And she's like, oh, go ahead, you have access.
They all need dashboards. I've even had to call Chad and be like, I'm in a meeting and I need to know how many specialists you have right now. And he'll just like go look up some data set and send me a number, but they don't have, it's not easy for them to access. It looks like Monday afternoon, the program was canceled. One of the trainings was canceled. We might, I'm looking for a window of time where I think y'all are available. And it looks like that 12 to 3:30 range might work on Monday if we gave Tammy some options. Is that too soon?
Check your schedules and see if that works for everyone. I think it will, at least for the students. So what we want to do is we want to get a follow-up email. She can send us some data, send us some reports, maybe some data. And then I would recommend 2 things. One, make sure you, looks like I've seen lots of chats now. Make sure you all spend some time on 211. Especially focus on Iowa concerns because that's the hotline we're going to work with. Unless we think there's ethical concerns, it might not be bad to just call into that line and just see it from the user side.
Oh,
what that's like.
Exploit.
And
it's actually interesting.
It might be helpful to see it from the user side. You know, to click through like how do you find that place? How do you find that phone number? If the team divides up, one person tries the phone, one tries a text, and one tries an email, just so you can see what their looks like from the user side, that might be helpful. But what I'm proposing here is ramp up on and get a whole lot more information before we go into our next meeting, which might be as soon as Monday.
It'd be great to see if we can get her 211 database too, because we're scraping that. So
Sorry, that one
oh, that's awesome.
demanding. So one thing about 211, I think it's actually a project from University of Washington at St. Louis. Somehow, I think it's a national project.
It's national, yeah. I didn't know it was university sponsored. It's super
So
cool.
I just click follow the link underneath, and it say Health Commission Research Laboratories, which is Washington University at St. Louis, not University of Washington. Sorry. Anyway, so we're gonna focus on our concern, right?
Yeah, does that seem okay?
Does that work for people?
I think since that one she's got the, yeah, since that's the one she has the most flexibility, or that's the one, what I'm concerned about is our time, and in terms of legal agreements and where there's like collaborators where she has to get everyone's permission, that can grind into weeks and months. So focus on the one where she has maximum control and flexibility. We can get into it quick and we can move fast, and we've only got a little bit of time. So I think that's a good one to focus on.
So I think we have to drop moving forward with the system. We won't do any system changes like the cloud-based system that we were thinking about. What are you thinking on machine learning if we don't have access to the recordings?
Well, they've got, oh, go ahead, guys.
Yes. So I think if we don't have call recording, then maybe the text that we have from the topics that person put in. But we have to make sure that, or we have to at least hope that they put in all the like interesting topics, and then we can maybe predict something from that and suggest something. But since we don't have call recording, then it will be a different process though.
Yeah.
Or if we can get to access to iCarol system, then we can also be able to find the patterns and make a kind of a report out of those patterns based on like unsupervised learning as well.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh,
Sounds
good.
great.
I want to push her on to get us some text-based data, whether it's from the text or the emails or the logs that whatever's recorded by the people that work the lines. So we have some text-based to work with, because I'm guessing traditionally and historically text-based work is people don't often analyze that because it's basically human. Someone's got to read through and code and classify. It's really time-intensive, resource-intensive. It's likely those, if she has whatever they have, digitized text is being woefully underutilized if it's utilized at all. So that's one where we can say, look at this data that you're sitting on. It's just you can all this cool stuff, classification, analysis, and things. So I really want to find a way for us to get some text and show them something there. Deepak, yes.
I agree with you on that point. Yep, I agree with you, and I feel that although the interns did a really good job on learning phone architecture, but I mean, even if we won't throw it all away, it can even be a kind of a prototype if we get some time. It's not like we will like 1 week's effort will go away, but yeah, I think let's go ahead with Tammy's data, and it's really good if we can get some access to the Carla databases. That would be really nice.
Okay. One of the reasons pushing this machine learning is, especially for the interns, is Deepak's strong on this, Adisak's strong on this. This is a great opportunity for you guys to get way elbows deep into this area and really come out stronger. So I want to leverage the strengths on the team and make sure we kind of maximize kind of knowledge transfer from Deepak and Adisak to the team, and really showcase DS's abilities here to extension.
One thing I wouldn't close the door on yet, but just in a consideration, if there's anything that would like be phenomenal if we did it this way, we might keep pushing it, but probably not. Is there different legal parameters around speech to text? Like if you just only save the text and not the speech, if it was like a live automating and then it performed text,
well, so you're on point.
Identifiable. I still have the problem that I mentioned, the Andy. That's like the example that is regularly given in state government. But
well, yeah, I actually
voice, that's an identifier.
It's well one. I used to want to mention that to Tammy, but it might be getting too long, and it's kind of pointless there. So I think maybe we talking about like what's Google try to convince people on Gmail. You remember that? I think many years ago, few years ago, then Gmail want to implement Gmail that on the service they say that okay, here's we have machine learning read through your email, but no human, and then we feed associated ads, and that's all. And at first people kind of freak out, but they kind of say that okay, there's we promise there's no human ever get into your data, but our machine did, and there's no human, there's no one gonna disclose your data. And a lot of people still use that because the service is good and it's free, right? So it might be a similar thing if we can confirm to them that it's an AI and machine learning algorithm read through, and the model will never capture identifications, but it might just for the good cause. I mean, for the improvement of the service and to just get more people help and like improvement of the system. Then basically the same thing. It might pass. I mean, right, doable. Just happened before.
Yeah. Okay. I know we're working on other stuff. I'm just still thinking about that one. It was such a good idea that y'all had.
It's awesome. And I think that before we're done, we'll pitch a little bit of this here. I want to work this into a long-term relationship where we can have some students working with them on this moving forward. So I do want to end with one shout out. Adisak, super good handling of Tammy. You all noticed a few times where she said things like, now that we're going to look under the hood, like she was getting insecure, like, oh, it's just Excel and I built the stuff and I know you can do better. And Adisak came right in with, like, connected with her. I use Excel and I teach Excel. It's just a very good way to say, no, we're good with Excel. And that was just a very, very good way to handle her and to make her feel comfortable that we don't think we're better and we don't think what she's doing is bad. That was just really, really well handled.
Way to go, Adisak. Woohoo!
That's good.
And Kent, great job. I really like the resources you were posting in chat. Those are really on point and helpful. Nice work. That was really good too.
Okay, we'll get your notes typed up and share across the team and then start putting together, have a good discussion, heated and engaging discussion about where to go from here. What do you need to learn? What do you need to do? Awesome.
Okay.
Well, nice. Well, we better let you get to your families.
Aww.
Hey, buddy.
Hi, sweetie. All right. Have a great night, everybody.
Bye.
Have a great night.
Say bye.
See ya.
Bye.